a search functionality on account or employee object. Let's say how many records I have in employee. Yeah, I have total 504 records with the different cities. Yeah, it's a good to go with the employee object. Let's say I have 504 employees in my database system. Let's say my requirement is assume that this is our Visual Force page where I'm going to place a text box and one button. The button is a search button, and user enters the data. Let's say for city is a city column, and user enters the data. Assume that the city is Bangalore. When user enters Bangalore and when he clicks on search button, I would like to dynamically I would like to display a table where I would like to display the employees. I would like to display the employees belongs to this city, particular city. So I can see many employees with Bangalore city. So I would like to display only the employees from the Bangalore. So here is a city you can see. So here is a Bangalore we have. So I would like to display the employees from the Bangalore. So that is my requirement. So dynamic. So where I would like to show few columns data. A search functionality, because when you have the data, when you have the thousands and lakhs of records in your database, we need to provide an option to the end users to search the record based on some filters. Let's say here we choose only one filter, that is city filter. So in case if it is required more filters, so we need to add the additional filters. So that is general requirement. This is general requirement in most of the cases. So once user clicks on search button just to display the data. So how can you achieve this functionality? So this is one of the regular and mostly used scenario in the real in the project in any project. So this is a text box and a label. So we know how to place the text box and label and a button. So let's continue with the scenario. I'm creating a Visual Force page. My page name is search VF. You know how to create a Visual Force page. Until beginning, so if you observe till beginning, we are writing the code in the development mode. So in the beginning of the session, we had a discussion about the different editors used in the code to write the code. So one is the development mode. So till most of the requirements since the beginning session, so we wrote the code using the development mode. So today, so we go to some other editors where you can also write your code. So that is the developer console. So using developer console, so this is the one editor where you can also write your code, and another editor is Eclipse editors. So we call forge.com IDE. So generally Java developers write the code using an Eclipse editor. And let's move to the second editor. So we will talk about an Eclipse editor later in the future classes. And developer console. You can write code anywhere. Either you can write using the development mode or you can open a separate window. So where you can go here, just go to the developer console. Here you can see, just click on it, maximize your screen. So from where you can write your code. If you wanted to open any page, just go to file, open. What's your page name? Just select the pages. The page name is search VF. select it, double click on the page, or else you can click open button. Just select or double click, it opens your page. So here is a page. So I didn't write any logic. So here is a page, and if you want to create a controller, so which means you are, so when you, if you want to create a controller, again go to file and new Apex class. So here is a class, just click on it, where you can declare your class such employee such class. So this is a class name. Just copy the class name. Because we use the class name in the Visual Force pages, click on OK. Now page and class you can see. So for Visual Force page, the extension is VFP Visual Force page, and for the class the extension is APXC Apex controller. So here is a Visual Force and here is a class. If you wanted to link this class to this Visual Force, so we know, so we use controller keyword, controller equal to and your class name, then save it. So to save the code, it's just control yes, it's a shortcut. You can use the control S as a shortcut. So what are the changes you write here? So just it's a part of the class code, you can write. So whatever you want, you can write directly here. So once you write anything, so you can, so if you go back to the development mode and refresh the screen, you can see the same changes, which means both are nothing but both are the editors. You can also choose either development mode or developer console to write your code. But if you want to execute the program, so once you are done with your changes, once you are implemented a code, you back to the page again. So you need to execute here only. So from the development mode we cannot execute it, but from here we can execute because it's a Visual Force page. Visual Force page should be executed from the browser. So let's say I would like to place a text box. So before that I'm adding Apex form tag, Apex form, and Apex output text. This is just a label. Enter city is my label, and a new blank space after it, and BSP new blank space. Then I would like to place a text box, input text. It's just a text box I'm adding, then save it. And if you want to check the results, go back to the browser and refresh your screen. So here is a text box, enter city, and here is a label and a text box. User enters the value here, and once he clicks on search button, let me add the search button as well. So another new blank space, Apex command button, value equal to search, save it. Go back to the page and refresh. So here is a search button. So my requirement is users enter the data. When he click on search button, I would like to show the data. I would like to display the records. So based on the key. So if I enter Hyderabad, it should fetches the data only from Hyderabad. So because there should be a change in the SOQL. The SOQL query should fetches the data based on the user parameter. So what is the parameter that we enter in the text box? It should fetches the data. So if there is no data, then I would like to display an error message. I would like to throw an error message or information message to the user saying that the records are not existed in the database. So let's see. So now you are clear with the developer console where you can also write your code. So I'm going to declare one action method, public void do search. Do search is an action method. So just to copy the method name, and add action equal to do such, save it. So here in the do such method, so I'm going to construct the socle query. So declaring a socle variable, just a string variable. Initially the socle is null, so there is no value in the socle initially. So I'm just initializing this variable in both constructor and action method, and then adding the static part. Socle equal to socle plus. What is the static part here? So I'm declaring select ID, name. What are the parameters you would like to show? City, country, from employee. Let's say these are the three parameters I would like to show. It means employee name, employee city, and country. I would like to display these three columns in the search results from employee, where city equal to, or else you can split this where condition to some other statement. So this is a static part. Static part. So the dynamic part is socle equal to socle plus, where it actually changes the parameter, where city underscore c equal to the selected parameters. What is the parameters you select? What is the parameters you enter in the text box column that needs to be added? So for this, I am declaring one value property to capture the value in our controller. Value equal to, what is the value? So selected city. So selected city is the value which is entered by the user. So I am declaring a property, public string selected city, getter and setter. Save it. So the value which is entered by the user, so which is a parameter, so that is selected cities, that is our property. So what is the value which is entered in the text box, that will be collected by the selected city parameter. So I'm using city equal to plus selected city. So just wanted to print the debug to check what exactly the socle format is. Let's say plus socle. I'm just printing the result. Save it. Now set the debug for the user, debug for the current user, debug logs. Set the log for the users and go to the application and refresh the screen and clear the logs again. So because the constructor will be loaded, so that it will generate a log. So now enter the value. Let's say I'm entering Hyderabad, and when I click on search button, this action method will be executed. Where is the debug here? So let me save this. Save this again. Where there is syntax error here, refresh the screen and clear the logs you have. So enter any parameter, click on search. So now the method is executed in the controller, action method is executed. and check the log result. So here you can see, so this is a SOQL query, actual SOQL query it has executed. So it is an actual SOQL query. Actual SOQL query is select ID, city, country from employee, where city equal to Hyderabad. So actually this is the parameters when you are comparing the value, when you are adding the string parameters, so it should be linked with the quotations, so that it identifies the executable controller identifies that is a string. So in Salesforce, so we need to add some escape parameters. So we call escape quotations to form the single quotes to the string. So what you can do is wherever you are using a string parameters, you should use within the double quotations, you should use slash and a single quotation. So slash and single quotation which is equal to a single quote, because so if you observe, we are writing a SOQL query inside of the quotation. So you need to tell the difference between what is your SOQL quotation and what is your string quotation. So for this, wherever we use, you can just use this statement. So that it adds the an extra code to your string parameter. Now save it. Now go to the same application and clear the debugs. Refresh the page and clear the debugs before executing an action. Now enter the same key parameter, enter the same search key, then click on search button. Observe the log results again. Now check the output. So initially I don't have the single quotes, now I have the quotations. Initially the SOQL will be would be like this. Now I have added quotation, which means so slash and colon. So these are the escape quotations. So we should add an escape quotations to the string parameters. So when you are binding the data, you should add the quotations to your SOQL query. Now, yeah, so my SOQL is ready. To execute the dynamic SOQL query, we use database.query method. So database.query method is a built-in method, so which is used to execute a dynamic SOQL query. So for example, so the data is an employee data. So list employee, lst employees equal to. So you already built a SOQL query. So the SOQL query is in the variable SOQL. So use database.query and your method name, so that this query will execute and returns a list of records to the employee object. So it means employee variable, LSTE variable. So I would like to display the results on my screen. So which means this should be a property. So if it is a property, then only we can bind the data on a Visual Force pages. If it is not the property, then we cannot bind the data. It should be the property. So because once we declare a property, the scope is visible on a Visual Force. So otherwise we cannot bind the expected results. List employee LSTE. So this is just a user defined variable. So this is our user defined variable, and before querying the data, so just nullify the instance. So this is the best practice. So this is called initialization. So just initialize this, because even in the constructor. So because once the class is loaded, I don't want to show any data. Or if you wanted to show some records, by default we need to write another socle in the constructor so that it will uh, show the default records. As of now, I don't want to display any records. I would like to show only the empty screen. So once user enters a parameter and when he clicks on search button, then only I would like to display the data. So lst equal to, this is a part of the initialization, then write lst equal to database dot query method, and where is your socle parameter. So just add your string socle parameter, then save it. Now when you execute this action, so this method will be executed and it prepares the data based on your search key. Now the rest of the process we know that. So we use a page block table and a page block. Just use Apex page block and the title. If you want to add any title, title equal to employee results or employee data or information, and then use page blocks table. And for this page block table, you should use two extra attributes, required attributes, var and value. So this value must be your list parameter, so your list property, and variable can be any user defined name. And if you want to display the data within page block table, use column with the header value equal to and value equal to. So value is a merge column emp dot name, and the header value is any name, employee name, the same. So what is the next column? Employee city and employee country, emp dot city underscore underscore c, emp dot country underscore underscore c, then save it. So it has saved successfully. Then go to your application, back to the application, refresh your screen. So by default here is a page block section, so we will add some extra functionality, so to hide this later, so I will show you that. So even I would like to add a new space after this, we will do that. So entering some key, let's see, I'm entering the key, and when I click on search button, see, so it fetches the data only belongs to this particular city. So I have some records. Let's say if I change the parameter to some other, see, based on the key. So here is a key that I have entered. It fetches only the records, which means what is the key parameter that we are entering, so that should be part of the socle. So here, so it will be added dynamically. It will be added dynamically so that the query will be constructed and fetches the data, and we are showing them on Visual Force pages. So now you are aware of how to write the code using the developer console also. So we are closing the developer console, and for rest of the classes we use a developer mode, so it's easier for us to build the code. So because we can parallelly enter the code and we can check the results. So see, I would like to add some break line. We want to add the break line after search button, so just add some BR statements. So my requirement is, see, an easier requirement. So once the page is loaded, we are not showing any data. So when you are not showing any data, then I don't want to show this table as well. I don't want to show this page block section. So for this, we can use a rendered statement. So let me copy the code. This is our page code and class code. So we have a rendered statement. So this is rendered statement. So what is a rendered? So rendered can be returns either true or false. It's a boolean statement. So when you use rendered, so if it is a true, rendered equal to true means it shows the component show, or rendered equal to false means it hides the component hide, show and hide. To show a component or to hide the component on a Visual Force page, then we use a rendered statement. Suppose, so here in the page block, or I can declare one output panel, Apex output panel. So it is a kind of div box. Just I'm declaring an output panel. So for this output panel, I am adding the rendered statement. Rendered equal to some parameters. Is data. Is data is the flag variable. Is data. Then only display the page block. So public boolean is data. So which is a property. Initially, I don't want to show the section. So initially, I don't want to show this page block. So that it should be false. Once the page is loaded, so it should be false so that it never shows the section. And once you have the data, see if lste.size greater than 0, if you have at least one record, then make it to true, then save it. So this is each data is a boolean property, so we use to hide or display the sections. Let me execute the code again. So just enter the key, and when I click on search button, now I can see the section. I can see the section and the rest of the data. But when I load it, it doesn't show any section. So this is a one way we use the rendered property. So rendered means either show, so it can hide the component or it can display the component based on the data. Initially, when it is loaded, the constructor will be loaded so that the boolean value becomes false. And within the action method, if you find the data, suppose if you don't have the data, it never show again. It never show this page block. Let's say test. When I click on search, there is no data, so it doesn't show any page block. Let's say if there is no data, else I would like to show an information message. So you know how to display page messages. So we have Apex message class in Salesforce. Using Apex message class, we can display any information or error message or any confirmations. Even we discussed in previous session on this. So just copy any statement from here. So in else part, so if there is no data, which means if data is less than 0 or less than or equal to 0, I'm adding some error message saying that no records found. No records found. It should be like a information window. Just use info apex pages dot add message and use the message. My msg is my variable, message variable. Just adding the message to pages. And if you want to display error message, just use apex page messages. Now entering the key, when I click on search button, it doesn't show any error message and it will show the records. Or if I enter some other key, just click on search, it execute an action. See, it execute an action and showing no records found and showing no records from this error message. And also, if you don't have the data and make it again false. If you don't have the data, just make it false. So remove this message from here and place it outside. Now it will show some information message to the user so that user can change the search parameter. See, if there is a data, then it will show the data. So this is like showing some messages, info message when no data found. So this is another change, page code and class code. So or else I don't want, so you can also use this rendered property. Let's say here is a rendered property. So here is a rendered property we are using. We can also directly use this render property. Instead of declaring an extra variable lst data, you can use the list variable. So here is the list that I am using. You can directly check the condition. If, and write the condition here, lst data dot size equal to 0, then don't display, which means false, otherwise show true. So what you can do is you can remove this parameter. So use data. Actually don't need this parameter. Or instead of writing if else condition, if lst e dot size equal to 0, you can write a single condition. So if I have the data, then it will show the results. So this is the direct condition we can also include. If data equal to 0, 0 means don't display, which means false. If you have the data, then true, make it true, so that it will display the results. So this is another rendered. So another way of rendered, we can directly use a list parameters wherever it is required. This is a page code and this is a class code. So just to follow the changes, so we can use the same we can implement the same requirement in multiple ways. So this is a rendered attribute. So rendered means it's a boolean. It's a boolean attribute. It returns either true or false. If the value is true, which means it shows the block. If the value is false, it means it doesn't show the block. And another attribute you should understand, so that is a re-render. So re-render is an attribute so which is used for partial rendering the pages. Suppose I tell you the difference here. So if you observe clear, let's say I'm adding some other parameters, let's say Bangalore. So when I click on search button, you observe the changes. When I click on search button, what happens, it reload the complete page. See, the page is loading and fetches the data and updates the results. So it loads completely. So I don't want to load the I don't want to load it. Instead of loading, so instead of loading the page, I would like to just load this partial block. So the difference is when you load the complete page, it causes some functional impact. So for example, I'm adding one text box, a general text box. Let's say there is another text box I would like to place. Input type equal to text. So this is a text box I'm going to place on top of city column. I tell you the difference here. So what is an impact? Just to understand, so I just added one more text box. Let's say this is country. So this is country. Make sure should be in the proper alignment. So let's say if I enter some value and enter another value, Hyderabad, and the difference is when I click on search button, due to the action method, it clears the input element. It clears the input element and displays the results. So anyway, we are not using this country as a part of the filter. Just to try to understand what happens here. When an action is executed, due to the loading, due to the complete loading the page, some of the values will be cleared. So, but it is not correct. So when I enter the some country value, which is a part of the HTML element, I don't want to make it clear. So instead of making it clear, so I would like to show the same value there. So don't render the complete page. So what you can do is you can just render exact block. So once you click on search button, what is the required thing that you would like to load? So you would like to load this page block. That's it. You don't want to load the complete page. You just want to load this one. So in that case, use re-render. Re-render equal to any value. You can use any value here. Just use out. So this is just a user defined name. So output panel id equal to just a declare out. So that based on this re-render statement, it renders only this output panel. It doesn't render the whole page. See the difference now. So when I click on search button, just click on search button. Yeah, it's not actually rendering. So or else just use, so we need to add re-render equal to out and add an extra status message, status equal to my status, and it should be inside the action status. So let me do some changes here. Action status start text equal to loading. Please wait. So I tell you what exactly this facet. Now check the same functionality. Yeah, so what you can do is, so I would like to display this page block. Just use this to rendered. So just enter country and city. Just click on search button. Now it will show the results. It will show the results. And if you observe here, just remove the additional logic we wrote. Just remove it so that the changes will be clear. So what I did is I just used a re-render statement. Just used a re-render statement and just re-rendering the this block out block. Just re-rendering the out block. So I enter the data. So when I click on search button, I could see results, but the value still remains in the text box. So which means it doesn't reload completely. So even when I enter some other key, just observe the changes. When I click on search button, it never reload the complete page, but it updates the results in the page block table. So that is the re-render. So re-render doesn't reload the whole section, so whole page. It re-renders only a partial block. So using re-render functionality, we can re-render partial blocks. So here I'm using re-render equal to out, which means if it is re-render equal to out, it re-renders only this section. So it reloads only this section so that the results will be updated in the page block table. So instead of reloading, so if you don't use this, let's say if I don't use re-render statement, what happens here? So I enter the data, and when I click on search button, see it reloads completely. So it reloads completely and clears the results, but that is not a correct. It's not a quality application. Just use re-render and the any value, but this value must be used as a part of the id for any section that you want to re-render. Now see the results. See, so this is re-render functionality, just to re-render a partial blocks. So this is about the re-render. Yeah, so today, so we just discussed about the socket part, and in the Ajax component sections we just discussed about re-render and render. So and output panel also. Output panel is just like a div section, just like a division section. So any questions you have?